Assalamu alaikum, respected ma'am and dear fellows. I am Muhammad Islam. My presentation is on the fifth chapter of Aint, a Woman, written by Bell Hooks. The fifth chapter is entitled Black Women and Feminism. Let us start. Alright, the chapter begins with a reference to Sojourner Truth's speech, Anti-Woman. Sojourner Truth was an American abolitionist and women's rights activist. She delivered the speech to Women's Rights Convention, which was held in Akron, Ohio, in 1851. She delivered the speech while addressing an anti-slavery rally. She was addressing an abolitionist rally, and while delivering this speech, she exposed her breasts before white men and women. Why did she do so? She wanted to prove that she was a woman, and uh, according to her, if she had breasts, it was an ample proof that she was a woman like the white women. Okay, what was the attitude of the white men and women that were present there? The white women considered that a black woman was unfit and unsuitable to address a gathering that had white public in it. Um, to voice their opinion, they shouted, "Don't let her speak! Don't let her speak!" It recorded their protest against her speech. This was in fact their protest against the speech of a black woman. Sojourner Truth includes her personal narrative into her speech. She had been a slave and she had worked at plantation farm along with black men. Uh, Here we have an extract from her speech, Anti-Woman. Let me read it. That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Well, here she presents the male view that women need special care and protocol. They need to be helped. They need to be lifted over ditches, and they demand special place everywhere. After recording this male argument, Sojourner Truth refutes it. She says, "Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman?" Well, she refutes this idea by her personal example. She says that she can help herself into carriages, she can cross mud puddles, and she never demands any best place. And uh, she ends the argument with a rhetorical question, "Ain't I a woman? Look at me, look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman?" Again, she continues with other examples. She points to her arm. She points to the fact that she has plowed and planted just like men. She has gathered into barns just like men, and she also emphasizes that no man could excel her. And again, she ends her argument with a rhetorical question, "Ain't a woman?" Again, I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it. Okay, she refers to the fact that she can work as well and as much as a man can, and she can also eat as much as a man can. and bear the lash as well. She has the similarly hard body. She can bear punishment as gracefully as a black man can. And ain't I a woman? Again, she asks, uh, ain't I a woman? Well, she gives these examples and asks the audience whether these things prove her a female or not. Well, she is a female, but she can compete men. She can compete males uh, at what they claim to be best at. I have borne 3 children, 13 children, and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my grief, with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Okay, her last argument begins with the idea of motherhood. Earlier, she argued that she was equal to men. Here, she proves that she is superior to men because she is a mother too. She has borne 13 children, and her children were sold off to slavery. She uh, tolerated that. No man can tolerate that. Well, and she cried with a mother's grief. No man came to her rescue. No man came to her help. Uh, Again, she ends the argument with a question, with a rhetorical question, which is, ain't I a woman? Okay, so this speech again and again emphasizes her womanhood, and at the end highlights her motherhood. She proves by giving examples from her personal life that she is a woman, and despite being a woman, she can compete males at their game. Well, the next idea is the denial of black women's contribution to feminist struggle. Whenever we study about feminism, we come to know that white women started this movement, and they struggled for women's rights. They struggled for women emancipation. They struggled for women empowerment. The role and the contribution of black women is never mentioned. Their contributions go unrecorded. Here I have given a brief list of notable works uh, written by white feminists. Uh, these are works by the feminists, but these works don't include the role and the contribution of black women. Uh, it proves that these works are racist in their ideology. They talk about women's rights, but they forget to include the contributions, or they deliberately ignore the role of the black women leaders in feminist struggle. Okay, these works are The Remembered Gate by Barbara Berg. Secondly, Her Story by June Sochin. Thirdly, Hidden from History by Sheila Rowe Bothan. And finally, the Women's Movement by Barbara Deckard. These are feminist works, but they do not mention, they do not record the fruitful efforts that were rendered by the black female leaders uh, in the struggle for women emancipation and women empowerment. Okay, Mary Church Terrell, a black feminist activist. Alright, Mary Church Terrell, she is another name worth mentioning in the movement called Black Feminism. She was a spokesperson for the social equality of the black women in the sphere of education. She is known for her book, A Colored Woman in a White World. In this book, she discusses the social status, the poverty and powerlessness of black women. She also explores the impact of racism and sexism on their lives. She points to the fact that women are double victims, that black women are double victims, they are doubly oppressed. First, they are oppressed by their race, by their black race. They are victims of slavery. Secondly, they are oppressed by sexism. They are enslaved by patriarchy. They are enslaved by their own male counterparts. Okay, Mary Church Terrell also lobbied in support of women's suffrage. She was a keen supporter of the women's right to vote. Okay, her essay Lynching from a Negro's Point of View is also remarkable. In this essay, she wrote about the sad reality of the times, that is lynching, the lynching of Negro men and boys. Well, in this essay, she appeals to white women to involve themselves in the anti-lynching crusade. She asks them to participate in the anti-lynching crusade. She believes that white women are the white men's accomplices at lynchings. First, because they are responsible for the training of the white men as lynchers. They are the mothers, and they could guide them. Uh, they could train and guide them better. They could make them better human beings. They could make them compassionate. Uh, Instead, the white men turned out to be the the merciless lynchers who enjoyed inflicting violence at helpless black people. In this way, she holds white men responsible for racism and racial oppression. She holds them answerable for the lynchings. She holds them accountable as much as she holds white men. The next black female leader worthy of note is Anna Julia Cooper. She was the first to emphasize the black women's experiences. She said that feminists should include the black women's experiences in their accounts, their stories and their narratives should also be recorded. Their sufferings and their sacrifices should also be sung. Well, she urged the black women to articulate their own experiences. Uh, she thought that black women were victims of racism and sexism simultaneously. On the one hand, they were the victims of slavery, which was because they belonged to the black race. Secondly, they were the victims of sexism. They were enslaved by their male patriarchs. Uh, in this sense, patriarchy enslaved them. They were victims of sexism and patriarchy. She, according to her, the colored woman, that is the black woman, occupied a unique position in the American history. She says, and I quote, she is confronted by a woman question and race problem, and is yet unknown or unacknowledged factor in both. Okay, the black woman faces double issues, double dilemma. The first issue she faces is woman question, that is, she is oppressed because she is a woman. She is oppressed by her male counterparts, she is oppressed by the black men. The second issue she faces is the race problem. She is oppressed because she is black, because she belongs to the black community. Being black, she is oppressed by the white men, by her white masters. In this sense, as we have discussed it earlier, she is uh, doubly oppressed, first by her male counterparts and then by her white masters. However, the story doesn't end here. The unique thing is that her dilemma is not recognized uh, in any of these situations. When the feminists talk about women's rights, uh, first they forget to include the black women. Secondly, even if they include black women in the feminist struggle, they forget that black women are not enslaved by patriarchy alone. The women are not, the black women are not only oppressed by black men, they are also oppressed by the white masters. They are also enslaved by the system. Secondly, when the abolitionists talk about, uh, when they talk about ending slavery, uh, and they usually focus on the men as a whole. They forget that even if the black community is liberated, the women would remain slaves. They would remain slaves in their houses. They would remain slaves of their own black people, of their own black family members. The male family members, black patriarchs. In this slide, we will discuss how the contributions of black women were disregarded and went unrecorded in the civil rights movement. The black women, especially the black female leaders, participated enthusiastically in civil rights movement. But they could not get the leadership positions. The male leaders overshadowed them, and they came out to be as they came out to be as the leaders of the movement. Today, we know the names of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and Dubai, etc. But no one knows the names of Rosa Parks, Daisy Bates, and Fannie Lou Hamer. They were also the eminent black female leaders of the civil rights movement. Since they were females, they were not given the same popularity, they were not given the same coverage as the black male leaders were given. Uh, the leaders of the civil rights movement were patriarchs. The male leaders were patriarchs. They wanted to establish patriarchy. Well, they wanted to establish their families and communities on the patriarchal system which was set by the whites in America. Uh, they wanted the males to hold power and supremacy over the females. Secondly, the black men couldn't tolerate uh, that the black women should be free. They should be independent. They couldn't tolerate their independence and their strength. Uh, they did not want them to be equal in strength. They wanted them to work hard, but they wanted them to be subservient to them. Uh, they wanted the females, they wanted the black women to be submissive. They wanted them to be subordinate, and they preferred them to be unemployed, because if they were unemployed, they would be submissive and they would be dependent upon their black men, upon their black patriarchs, and make it would make it easy for the patriarchs to rule. To conclude, we can say that the struggle to end sexism and the struggle to end racism are intertwined. When we come to black feminism, when we read the history of black women, their slavery, their sufferings, uh, how they sacrificed and how they contributed to female emancipation movement, we come to know that we cannot separate these two things. We cannot separate the race from sex. In the black women's lives, race and sex are both immutable facts. They are immutable facets of their human identity. We cannot talk about one by excluding the other. Race and sex are inseparable for black women. Okay, black women are victims of both racism and sexism. The black feminists, therefore, have a double struggle before them. The fight is both against racism and patriarchy. If black women want independence, if they want equality in the real sense of the term, they would have to fight against racism as well as patriarchy. Okay, they will have to become race activists as well as feminist activists. They will have to fight on both the ends. Their fight is dual. Their fight is against the white masters, against the white slave system, against the capitalist system, as well as against the patriarchal system. Okay, that is all. I hope that I have been able to explain it well. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.